Good evening, and welcome back to Worlds Before Morning. Tonight, we are going further back than we have ever gone. Not 1,000 years, not 2,000, 25,000 years, into the deep winter of the Ice Age, to a small round house built of mammoth bone and hide, standing alone on a great white plain. Inside it, a fire is burning. Inside it, people very much like you are getting ready to sleep. That is the whole of tonight's story. There is no city this time, no harbor, no bells. There is one warm house in an enormous cold, and the family inside it, and the long night passing over them hour by hour. It is the oldest story we know how to tell, how people kept a fire and kept each other, and slept safely through the dark. You do not need to know anything about the Ice Age. There will be no dates to remember, and nothing to learn unless it drifts in on its own. The people in this house cannot read or write, and they sleep wonderfully, so learning is clearly not required. So settle yourself now, the way you mean it. Let the bed take your whole weight. Let your shoulders come down, and your hands soften, and your breathing slow to the pace of a banked fire. Outside your own walls, the world can be as cold as it likes. That is the point of walls. It has been the point of walls for 25,000 years. If these quiet nights help you rest, there is one small kindness you can do us. Subscribe so the next world can find you, and leave a word below telling us where in the world you are listening from. We read everyone in the mornings, and the thought of all those quiet rooms going dark, scattered across every country and every time zone, is the best fire we know. Wherever you are tonight, you are welcome here. This hour is yours, and the one rule of the house, the same as every night. You have my full permission to fall asleep at any moment. There is no ending you must stay awake for. Nothing in this story will startle you or call you back. The people we are visiting survived 100,000 nights like this one, and they did it by sleeping, not by watching. Tonight, you may do as they did. Here is the road we will walk, though you need not remember it. We watch the white world turn blue at dusk, and come in through the low tunnel to the warmth. We sit by the hearth in the middle of the house, and watch the fat lamps lit, and share the evening meal. We meet the keeper of the fire, and the old woman who knows the stars, and the Flint-Knapper in his corner, and the children asking their forever questions. We hear a little soft singing, and a story about the herds. We look out once at the moon on the snow, and the great sleeping animals far off, and a strange gentle light that sometimes walks the northern sky. And we end, as we always end, in the smallest hours, with every fur pulled close, and the embers breathing quietly and the first gray coming up over the edge of the world. So, the sun is going down over the steppe, far away and cold, like a lamp being carried out of a room. The snow is turning blue, and there, in the middle distance, a low round shape sits on the plain with one thin line of smoke standing straight up out of it. The only warm thing from horizon to horizon. Listen, someone inside is feeding wood and bone to a fire, and the fire is answering. It is the oldest sound of home there is. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. The world tonight is wide, and white, and very old, and it is worth one long look before we go inside. This is the great steppe of the Ice Age, and it runs further than any country you know. Grassland under snow, from one edge of the sky to the other. No forests to speak of, only the low willow scrub along the frozen streams. No mountains near, only the long swells of the land, rising and falling like a sea that decided one day to hold still. In summer this plain is green and loud with birds. Tonight it is silent, and the snow on it has been combed by the wind into long ridges, fine as the grain in wood. The cold is deep, but the land is not empty. Far off to the north, Small dark shapes are drifting in a line along a ridge. Mammoths, a family of them, walking in single file the way they always walk, the little ones in the middle. Their outlines are soft because their coats are long, and their breath hangs over them in a slow cloud. They are heading down to the willow flats by the river, where the food is, moving without hurry through a world that fits them perfectly. Closer, in a hollow, wild horses stand in a tight bunch with their tails to the wind. Reindeer are scattered along the lower ground, like dark stitching on a white cloth. Somewhere beyond the river there are bison, and great deer with antlers wider than a man is tall, though tonight they are only tracks and rumor. The steppe holds more large animals than almost any place on earth will ever hold again. It is a hard land, but it is a rich one, and everything living here knows both facts by heart. The light is going now. The sun does not linger in winter. It slides along the horizon, flattens, turns the color of embers and is gone, and the blue that follows it is the deepest color this land owns. The snow keeps a little light of its own for a while, the way snow does, giving back what it saved of the day. And in the middle of all this, in the crook of a low rise, sits the house. From here it looks like a small hill that has learned tidiness. A round dome, perhaps 4 long strides across. Its outline lumpy and strange until you understand what you are looking at. The frame of it is bone, mammoth bone, skulls and long bones and shoulder blades, stacked and interlocked by clever hands, roofed over with hides and turf, and a winter's worth of snow. A thin, steady line of smoke rises from its crown and goes straight up in the still air, higher than you would believe, a pale thread joining the house to the first stars. One doorway faces away from the wind, low and dark, hung with a heavy hide. As we watch, the hide swings, and a figure in furs ducks out with a skin bucket in one hand, glances at the sky the way every human being has always glanced at the sky, and ducks back in. A little puff of firelight escapes with the movement, touches the snow, and is gone. That is where we are going, down the slope, across the blue snow, in through the low door, before the last light leaves the plain. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. Come in. Stand a moment at the door, because the house deserves to be understood before it is entered. It is one of the cleverest buildings human beings have ever made, and everything about it was thought of by someone. There are no tall trees on the steppe. There is no timber for beams, no quarry for stone. What the steppe has, in unbelievable plenty, is bone. The great animals live and die on this plain, and their frames outlast them, white and hard and everywhere. So the people here did the sensible, astonishing thing. They built with what the land gave. The base of the wall is a ring of mammoth skulls, each one heavier than a man, set with their broad foreheads facing inward and their tusk sockets down, so they sit as steady as boulders. On top of them and between them run the long bones, thigh bones and shin bones stacked like cordwood, and shoulder blades overlapped in rows like enormous roof tiles. Higher still, curved tusks arc toward the middle, meeting other tusks, making the ribs of the dome. It sounds like a wild thing, a house of bones, and perhaps it is. It is also as strong as any hut of timber, and it was standing here before you and I were dreamed of. Over the frame go the hides, big ones sewn together with sinew, stretched tight and lashed down, hair side out on the outermost layer so the snow slides off. Over the hides in places, cut turf and packed earth, and over everything the winter itself has laid its own thatch of snow, which is no enemy at all. Snow is a blanket. The house wears the winter as insulation, and the deeper the drifts climb its sides, the warmer the inside becomes. The doorway is low on purpose. You enter this house bent double, through a short tunnel of hide, and the tunnel turns a little, and heavy flaps hang at each end of it. This is not to make visitors feel humble. It is a trap for the cold. Wind cannot turn corners well. Warm air rises and stays in the dome, and the cold air that slips in with each coming and going is caught and tamed in the crooked little passage before it can reach the fire. 25,000 years from tonight, people in cold countries will still be building their entrances this way, and most of them will never know whom they learned it from. And the crown of the dome holds the smoke hole, drawn tight or eased open with a pull of hide thong. The house is one eye, the fire's road to the sky. Put your hand against the wall, here by the door. Under the hide you can feel the old bone, cold as the night on this side. But lean close, and you can hear the inside the way you can hear the sea in a shell. A low mutter of fire, a child's voice, rising in some question and settling again. The knock of a wooden bowl, someone laughing briefly, quietly, at something we will never know. A house is a house is a house in any age. This one is made of the largest animals that walk the earth, and inside it, somebody is laughing at supper. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. Duck low now. In we go. The tunnel first. Bend double and let the outer flap fall shut behind you. And for 3 heartbeats you are in the strangest little room in the world, dark as a pocket, floored with trodden snow, smelling of frost and hide. The cold came in with you. You can feel it swirling around your knees like a live thing, looking for a way forward. It will not find one. The inner flap is heavy, and it overlaps its door frame generously. And when you push through it and it swings to behind you, the cold is left in the tunnel to sulk. And then the warmth takes you. It is a full-body event, entering a warm house out of an ice-age night. And it happens in a fixed order. First the face, the cheeks and the rims of the ears, which sting and then glow. Then the eyes, which water a little. Then the smell arrives, all at once, layered and dense and good. Wood smoke and bone smoke, sweet and slightly fatty. Roasting meat, cured hides which smell like nothing else on earth. Halfway between leather and grass. Underneath everything, the smell of people living close together in a warm place, which no one in this age has ever thought to dislike, because it is simply the smell of everyone being safely home. Then the sound. The fire has the middle of the room and the middle of the soundscape, crackling low, spitting softly now and then when it finds a pocket of fat in a bone. Around it the sounds of evening, the scrape of a scraper on a hide, patient as breathing, bone needles clicking in a bundle as a sewing bag is opened, the knock and slide of wooden bowls, 2 women talking in the unhurried tone of people who have talked all their lives and are in no danger of finishing, a small child making the drowsy sounds of a child, nearly asleep, an old man humming, more breath than tune. Your eyes adjust last. The house is one round room, and it is lit from the middle, so everything arranges itself in rings. The bright ring closest to the fire, where the work is. The warm, dim ring behind it, where the beds are. Furs heaped on frames of bone and brush. The dark outer ring under the sloping walls, where the stores lie, bundles and bladders and stacked skins. The house holds wealth, tucked under the ribs of the house. Count the people, as much as the light will let you. Perhaps a dozen, 3 generations of one family, gathered under one roof of bone. Nobody rises at your entrance, because you have none tonight. We are only the story here, drifting in like warmth. The family goes on with its evening exactly as it would, exactly as it has, world without end. Straighten up slowly. The dome is higher than you expect, high enough to stand tall at the middle, and the tusks that rib it catch the firelight along their curves. 2 arcs of soft ivory light meeting overhead like the beams of a chapel no one has invented yet. Find a place on the furs, back from the fire, out of the way of the work. No one will mind. The best seat in the house is any seat in the house. On a night like this, the fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and you are inside where the story is. Everything in this house faces the fire, the way everything in a sky faces the sun. It burns in a shallow pit at the exact middle of the floor, ringed with flat stones that were carried here from the river, each one known individually, because good flat stones are not common on the steppe and are not left behind when a family moves. Look at what is burning, because there is a whole geography in it. There is wood, but not much, and none of it large. Willow twigs from the river flats, crooked and thin, gathered in armloads all through the autumn. Wood is precious here, kindling more than fuel. The body of the fire, the thing that actually holds the heat, is bone. Bone burns. It is not obvious that it should, but it does, and beautifully. Fresh bone is full of fat, inside and through, and once a fire is hot enough to wake that fat, a heavy bone will burn slow and steady, like a log that took a lifetime to grow. The fire pit is banked with them. Mammoth-bone mostly, split for their marrow first because nothing here is used only once. Bone flame is a little different from wood flame. It sits lower. It is bluer at the root and whiter at the tip, and it hisses very softly, a fire that whispers instead of chattering. Above the fire, on a frame of tusk and antler, hangs tonight's cooking. A skin-lined basket cannot sit in flames, so the people here boil the old way, the clever way. Stones heat in the fire's edge until they are gray hot. Then two are lifted with wooden tongs, knocked clean of ash, and slipped into the waiting basket of water and meat. The water hisses around them and settles into a busy simmer. When the stones tire, they are traded for hot ones. In this way, a stew cooks all evening without a pot ever touching flame, and the cooking stones grow smooth and crazed and dark, like the worry stones of giants. The fire's light reaches everything, but its heat is managed like the treasure it is. Hides hang at the sleeping places to hold warmth in. The stores are kept in the cold ring by the walls, where the chill preserves them. The children's bed is nearest the hearth on the sheltered side, because that is where children sleep in every cold country, in every age. There is a draft stone, a broad shoulder blade set on edge, that can be moved around the fire pit to shepherd the heat one way or another, and moving it 2 hand widths is a decision, discussed, and the fire is never allowed to die. Understand that, and you understand the house. Matches are 25,000 years away. Fire can be made new, with a drill of wood and a bow of sinew and long patience. But making fire is work and luck, and losing fire in deep winter is the one disaster this family organizes its whole night against. So the fire is a resident, not a tool. It has its keeper, whom we will meet. It is fed before the people are fed. It is looked at all evening by everyone, in the absent way that people look at a sleeping child. Is still there, is still strong. Good. Settle back on the furs. The stew has an hour in it yet. The stones knock softly in the basket. The bone flame whispers, and the warmth comes off the hearth in slow waves, like a big animal breathing. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. That is not a saying here. It is the whole law of the world, and tonight the law is being kept. As the last daylight dies in the smoke hole, the lamps are lit, and lighting them is the quiet ceremony that turns evening into night. A lamp here is a stone with a hollow in it. The best ones are river stones, worn already halfway to a bowl by water, finished by pecking and grinding through the patient hours of some past winter. Into the hollow goes a knob of fat, rendered and clean, and into the fat leans a wick of twisted moss or a pinch of dried lichen. A twig carries flame from the hearth. The wick takes it, gutters, thinks about it, and settles into a small, steady petal of light, no bigger than a thumbnail, faithful as a star. There are 5 lamps in this house, and each has its place and its purpose. One sits by the sewing, because needlework is the finest work done here and eats the most light. One goes to the Flint-Knapper's corner. One rests in a niche between 2 skulls in the wall by the beds, and burns all night, the house's night light, so that a person waking in the dark hours can see the shape of home around them and settle back under the furs. 2 are spares, filled and wicked and waiting, because a lamp that fails is replaced, never mourned. The light a fat lamp gives is not like any light you know. It is small and very warm in color, amber edged with rose, and it moves, not flickering exactly, breathing. A lamp flame leans when someone walks past, straightens, leans again with the draft of a laugh. The circles of light around each lamp are soft-edged and alive, and where they overlap, the shadows of the house are doubled and gentled, and everything looks a little rounder and kinder than it does by day. Watch the old woman light the sewing lamp, because she has done it several thousand times and it shows. She holds the burning twig at just the angle that the flame climbs it slowly. She touches it to the wick not at the tip but at the shoulder, where the fat has soaked best. She waits unhurried while the flame decides. She does not shield it with her hand, because she set the lamp out of the draft in the first place, having known where the drafts in this house lie for longer than the house has stood. Then she puts the twig back in the fire thriftily and picks up her needle, and the little light gets to work alongside her. Fat is fuel and fuel is life, and none of it is wasted. But it would be wrong to say the lamps are only practical. When all 5 are lit, on a feast night, the house glows like the inside of an amber bead, and the people here know that it is beautiful, and sometimes light the 5th lamp when nothing needs sewing at all. Beauty is old. It did not wait for easier times to be invented. It was here in the ice, in a stone bowl on a wick of moss, being chosen on purpose by people who counted every knob of fat and decided this one was for shining. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and now the small flames stand watch around the one great one, and the house is lit for the night. The stew has been ready for a while, in the way of stews, which are ready whenever the people are. Now the people are. The family gathers to the hearth, by an order nobody enforces, because nobody needs to. The children first, because they are hungriest and least patient, and this is understood and indulged. Then the elders, handed their bowls where they sit, meat cut small for the teeth they have left. Then everyone else, in the shuffle of long habit, each to a place that has been their place so long the furs remember their shape. The bowls are wood and horn, carved through past winters, mended with sinew stitches where they have split, each one somebody's own. Into them goes the good thick stew, ladled with a scoop of horn. Reindeer tonight from the cache under the floor, boiled slow with fat, and a handful of dried greens from summer, sorrel and wild onion, hoarded in a bladder against exactly this darkest month. The broth is rich and silky with marrow, and it is drunk from the bowl's edge, and the meat is eaten with fingers, and the small knife everyone carries, and the bones from the bowls go back to the fire, which eats last and eats everything. There is roasted meat too, strips seared on the hearthstones for the crisp edges the children fight over politely. There is a paste of pounded dried berries and fat, dense and sweet-sour, doled out in small knobs, half food and half medicine and wholly loved. And there is marrow, the treasure. A long bone, saved for tonight, is set in the coals, turned twice, cracked open on a stone with 2 expert taps, and the soft riches inside are shared down the circle on the blade of a knife. Eldest first, littlest last, and largest. Listen to the meal rather than watching it. Supper here has a sound, and it is the sound of content. The click of bowls, the small knives at work, the long sigh a tired man makes after the first hot mouthful, which is the same sigh in every age of the world. The children negotiating trades, crisp edge for berry paste, with the seriousness of traders anywhere. The old man telling something to his neighbor with his hand, stopped mid-gesture, and the pause while everyone waits for the hand to remember itself, and the soft laughter when it does. Nobody hurries. There is nowhere else anyone would rather be. The night outside is 14 hours long, and the food is here, and the fire is here, and everyone the heart requires is inside one round wall. Of all the wealth this family owns, the hides and the flint and the stored meat, the evening meal is the wealth they would name first. If you ask them what they had, a full bowl in a warm house, with everyone accounted for. It is what the whole day was for. 1,000 generations from tonight, this will still be true, and almost nothing else will have lasted. The bowls are wiped clean with the last knobs of the berry and fat paste, and the fire gets the scraps, and the meal lets go of the evening as gently as it held it. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and everyone inside is warm now from both directions, which is the only true definition of supper. Every family has its offices, and in this house the highest of them belongs to a girl of about 15, and it is hers because she is good at it, and she is good at it because she cares. She is the keeper of the fire, not its owner. The fire belongs to everyone the way the sky does, but its tending, tonight, and every night this winter is hers. She inherited the duty 2 winters ago from her grandmother, who watched her feed sticks into the coals as a small child, saw that she fed them at the right moments, in the right places, without being told, and made the sensible appointment. Skill goes where it is noticed. That is the whole of the law of succession here. Watch her work because it is real work, though it looks like idleness. A fire in a bone house on the steppe is not lit and forgotten. It is steered all night, like a boat on a slow river. She reads it constantly, sidelong, while doing other things. The color of the coal bed, which tells her its depth of heat. The lean of the flames, which tells her what the smoke hole is doing. The particular hiss of a bone reaching the end of its fat, which tells her the next feeding is a quarter hour off. She knows the fires moods the way a shepherd knows sheep. This bone will spit. That willow is damp at the butt end and wants the hot side. The east stones are tiring and should be turned. Her tools are a wooden poker, burnt to a useful hardness at the tip, a pair of long tongs of bent antler, and the draft stone. She moves it through the evening by inches, shepherding heat toward the sewing, then toward the beds as bedtime comes. Her fuel is stacked at her right hand in strict order, twigs to catch, split bone to hold, one whole heavy bone for the deep of the night, the banked long burner, her midnight ace. The responsibility is enormous, and she carries it the way the best young people carry enormous responsibility, which is lightly, with private pride. If the fire died in the dark of a deep winter night, the family could rebuild it. The drill and bow are in their bag, and 3 people here have made fire from nothing in wind with cold hands. But it might cost hours, and hours of deep cold are dangerous, and everyone would be wakened, and the shame of it would be hers to wear for a season. It has never happened on her watch. It is not going to happen tonight. You can see that in the set of her shoulders, which is the set of a sentry who happens to love the thing she guards. Later, when the house sleeps, she will bank the coals with ash, laying the fire down for the night the way the others are laid down in furs, tucked, covered, breathing slow. She will sleep nearest it, on the keeper's spot, and some part of her will listen all night, the way a mother sleeps through anything except her own baby's smallest sound. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. Feeding it is her hands. That it stays fed is her honor. Bedtime is beginning at the edges of the evening, the way it always does, with the smallest people first. And it is worth watching how sleep is built here, layer by layer, because nobody in any age has ever been better at beds than these people. A bed in this house starts with the ground and defeats it. The floor at the sleeping ring is laid with brush and dry grass, cut in autumn, a springy mat as deep as your hand, and over that go hides with the hair left on, laid hair up. Cold comes out of the earth all night long, patient as anything, and this mattress of air and hair is the answer to it. On top of that foundation go the sleeping furs, and here the household's wealth shows itself, because these are the finest things the family owns. Reindeer skin is the master fur. Every hair of it is hollow, a tube of trapped air which makes it warm beyond its weight, and a sleeping bag of winter reindeer hide, fur turned inward, is as warm a bed as human beings will ever devise. There are wolf fur ruffs for around the face, because wolf fur does not frost up with breathing. There is a great bison robe, heavy as a door, that covers 3 children at once and pins them gently to the bed like a kind hand. There are hareskin blankets, light as a held breath, for lining and layering. Every one of these was skinned, scraped, cured, worked soft with hands and smoke, and sewn with sinew thread through the long evenings of other winters. A bed here is years of work. It is also, and the family would say this matters more, years of knowing exactly what a bed is for. The children go down in a heap and are arranged. The middle of the heap is the youngest, who contributes least heat and needs most. The heap objects to bedtime on principle, briefly, and then betrays itself by yawning in chorus. The smallest one is asleep before the bison robe settles, mid-word, the way small children drop off a cliff into sleep. The others burrow and wriggle themselves together under the great robe, not asleep yet, only moored, whispering their last business of the day into each other's hair. The elder's bed is made ready next slowly, with ceremony and commentary. It is nearest the fire's steady side, and their furs are the softest, worked extra with stone and smoke, because old skin feels the cold through anything. The elders themselves will sit up a good while yet, as elders do, keeping the best of the evening for last. But the old woman pauses a moment on the bed's edge, as she always does, watching the lamp flame in the wall niche with her hands folded, thinking whatever she thinks there, every night in the same place with the same folded hands. The adults will follow in their own time, pair by pair, place by place. But already the house has tilted towards sleep. The talk has gone quieter, without anyone deciding it should. The firekeeper has begun shifting warmth toward the beds with her draft stone. Someone is humming again, low, the tune the babies here are raised on, older than anyone can say. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the beds are filling up with warm, breathing people, in the order people have always filled them. Littlest first, oldest gently, everyone eventually. Between supper and deep night comes the mending hour, and it might be the most human hour of the whole turning day. The light gathers at the sewing lamp, and so does the work. Winter is when everything is fixed here. The summer is for hunting and moving and gathering, life at a trot. Winter nights are long and lit and stationary, and so winter is the workshop. Every night after the bowls are cleaned, the work bags come out and the hands start, and the tongues start with them, and the two kinds of business proceed together until the eyelids win. The old woman has the boots. A seam has begun to weep at the heel of a winter boot. And a wet seam in this country is not a small thing. So it comes to her, the finest needle in the house. Her needles are bone, fine as grass stems, each one drilled with an eye you would need young sight or long faith to thread. They live in a hollow bird bone case, plugged with a whittled stopper, and that case is one of the treasures of the family, worth more in this world than its weight in anything. She wets the sinew thread in her mouth, rolls the end fine on her knee, and threads the needle on the second try, which annoys her. It used to be the first try. She mentions this to the boot. The boot keeps its opinion. Sinew is the thread of the age, and it is a small miracle, split from the long tendons along a reindeer's spine, dried, shredded fine. It is stronger than any cord of plant fiber, and it has one grace beyond strength. Sewn wet, it dries and swells slightly into its own stitch holes, sealing them. A good sinew seam in well-worked hide is watertight. The old woman's seams are better than good. The boot will outlive its owner's feet and be cut down for a child, and the heel seam will still be holding when the boot is finally burned with thanks. Around her, the rest of the mending. A man patches the palm of a mitten with a round of hide, stitching in a spiral inward, humming. Another splices a snapped snare cord, rolling the fibers on his thigh with the absent skill of 10,000 evenings. The fire keeper, between feedings, softens a strip of hide by drawing it back and forth around a smooth tusk, work you can do while watching a fire, which is why it is hers. Even the half-grown boy has a task, straightening the long dart shafts by eye and gentle bending over heat, learning by doing it slightly wrong beside a man doing it slightly less wrong than he once did. And over all of it the talk, not important talk, winter night talk, whether the wind will turn by morning, whether the far band by the 3 hills will come visiting at the midwinter moon, and whether their tall daughter will come with them. A question that makes the boy with the darts very interested in his darts. Which stretch of the river ice sang loudest last winter? Remember when, and remember when, and remember when. The long soft braid of a family's shared past, replated every night by the fire, so that nothing important is ever entirely lost. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. And inside, stitch by stitch and word by word, the world is being kept in good repair. In the warm ring, at the place where the lamplight and the firelight overlap, a man sits cross-legged on a worn hide with a stone in his lap, and he is doing the oldest skilled work in the world. He is the Flint-Knapper, and his corner is his workshop. The hide under him is his floor and his tidiness, catching every chip and flake so that no bare foot finds one later. A courtesy his grandmother taught him with one sharp word many winters ago. At his knee sits his kit, and it would fit in your 2 hands. A hammerstone, round and comfortable as an egg. A billet of antler, its striking end frayed soft with use. A small antler tine for the fine pressure work. A pad of thick hide for his palm. That is all. That is the entire factory. The flint itself came from far away, traded hand to hand along the river. Dark, good stone from a place he has never seen, and he treats it accordingly. He turns the core in the firelight, reading it. Stone has grain and moods, and hidden flaws that speak in a dull note when you tap them, and the reading takes longer than the striking. His people have been reading stone for so many thousands of generations that the skill sits somewhere below thought. He does not decide where to strike. He sees it, the way you see where to place your foot on a steep path. Then the work, and the sound of it, which is the sound this age will leave in the ground forever. Tap, turn, tap. A pause while thumb tests edge. The bright small click of a clean flake leaping free, caught neatly on the hide, each flake born sharper than any metal blade will ever be. sharper than the surgeons of the far future will quite believe. Most are blanks for later, scrapers and knives, and the little bladelets that tip and barb the hunting gear. But tonight's real task is one good spear point, to replace the one that broke in the autumn, and for that he slows down. The point grows by subtraction, the way all his art works. Long shallow flakes peeled from each face in turn, the stone thinning, the edges truing, the shape emerging as if it had always been inside waiting, which the napper would tell you it was. For the last stage he sets down the hammerstone and takes up the antler tine, pressing flakes off now rather than striking, tiny scallops of stone lifting away with a sound like a fingernail on a tooth, each one placed exactly, a row of them making the edge making the point making, in some month to come, the difference between a full cache and a hungry one. He holds it up at last, turns it against the fire, and the thin stone glows at its edges, translucent as a leaf in sun. The half-grown boy has drifted over, as he always does at this stage. The napper lets him hold it, flat on two palms, breath held. Beauty again, arrived without being sent for. It is a tool. It is also plainly in the amber light, with the fire shining through its edges, something more than a tool, and everyone looking at it knows so, in whatever words they keep for such things. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and in the napper's corner, one more perfect edge has come into the world through a pair of patient hands. Under this house, and around it, the winter itself has been put to work, and it is worth lifting the lid on the family's larder, because the larder is the reason the night is calm. Cold, that ancient enemy, is also the great preserver, and these people command it. Dug into the frozen ground beneath the floor's edge, and into the drifted bank behind the house, are the caches, pits lined with hide and slab bone, packed with meat from the autumn hunts, sealed with fitted bones and earth and snow. The ground here is frozen deep, winter and summer both, and a sealed pit in that ground is as good as any ice house that will ever be built. The meat in it, quartered and stacked in the dark, is as fresh tonight as the day it went in, and will be as fresh at winter's end. The autumn was spent filling those pits, and the geometry of the family's whole year leans on them. Reindeer from the great river crossings, taken at the season when the herds run past in their thousands. Horse and bison, fish from the weirs, dried first in the wind, then frozen, stacked like kindling. Bags of rendered fat, which matters more than meat, because in this country fat is warmth and lamplight, and the difference between thriving and merely lasting. Bundles of dried greens and roots and berries, the summer's gathering, light as gossip and precious as flint. Tonight's withdrawal was made this afternoon, before the light went. Opening a cache is a small event, done deliberately. Snow shoveled aside with a shoulder-blade spade, capstones lifted, the cold reaching up out of the pit like the past itself. The chosen bundle brought out, everything sealed again just so, snow packed back over. The elders inspect the seal without being asked. Every member of this family above the age of 10 can find every cache in the dark, in a storm, and knows what is in each, to the bag, because the caches are the calendar of survival. That is the arithmetic the elders run behind their quiet faces. So many bundles, so many mouths, so many weeks until the ice softens and the birds come back. The arithmetic is done constantly, silently, the way you check a sleeping child's breathing, and this winter the numbers are kind. The autumn was good. The pits went in full. There is a margin, and a margin means guests can be feasted at midwinter, and the long dark can be met with mending and stories, instead of tightened belts. There is an old feeling that lives in a full larder, older than this house, older than the steppe. You have felt it yourself in your own age, standing before your own stores. Enough, the word that lets the shoulders down. The animals gave much, and the family worked the whole bright half of the year. And now the frozen ground holds the result like a bank of solid gold. And the interest it pays is this, exactly this. A calm night, an unhurried fire, children asleep without a single hungry dream among them. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. And underfoot in the iron ground, the winter guards the family's plenty like a dragon hired for good. By the wall niche where the night lamp burns, wrapped in soft hide, lies a flat length of ivory the size of a hand, and it holds the family's other great treasure, which is time. The old woman brings it out tonight because tonight is a marking night. Unwrapped, the ivory shows its face, rows of small deliberate marks, cut with a flint point, marching in curved lines like flights of birds. To you, they might look like decoration. They are the moon. Each mark is a night. The rows bend and turn where the moon turned, waxing to full, waning to dark, month upon month. The whole winter laid out in ivory. She adds tonight's mark with a small stone blade, one clean stroke beside its brothers, and the night joins the record, and the record grows one night longer, as it has every evening since the first hard frost. This is the family's clock and calendar, and its uses are entirely practical. Count the moons and the marks, and you know how deep in the winter you stand, how far the turning is. When the midwinter moon will fill, which is the visiting moon, when the far band will come, the old woman can lay her thumb on the tally and tell you, to a few nights' honesty, when the light will begin to lengthen, when the great cold usually breaks, when the river ice grew dangerous last year and will likely grow dangerous again. The marks remember what no single head could hold. That is what marks are for, and her people have been cutting them, on bone and ivory and antler, for thousands of years before her, in rows and curves exactly like these. But watch her with it, and you will see the other thing the tally is. She does not just cut and wrap. She reads it. Her thumb travels back along the rows, night by night, moon by moon, pausing here and here. This mark, deeper than its neighbors, cut hard on the night the second child was born, a night of lamps and hurry and joy. This little doubled mark, the night the whole sky danced. She keeps the record for use, but she reads it for memory, and the ivory is smooth along its edges from years of exactly this. An old woman's thumb traveling back through time by lamplight, while the house goes quiet around her. Somewhere very far from this house, in stone rooms by a warm sea, 20-some thousand years from tonight, people will build great water clocks and catalog the stars and argue about the calendar. All of it begins here, and in 1,000 houses like this one. A mark for a night, a row for a moon, a thumb moving along the ivory and a mind moving with it, backward through the dark, sure of its road. Time was wild once. This is how it was tamed, one small cut at a time by grandmothers. She wraps the tally and ties it, and sets it back in its niche by the steady lamp. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the night just gone has been written down, and will now be kept. Before her own bed takes her, the old woman goes to the smoke hole, as she does on every clear night, and looks up, and the family lets her look, because what she sees up there feeds them. The smoke hole is drawn half wide tonight, the fire being steady, and through it stands a round window of deep sky, thick with stars. Stars here are not the scattered handful your cities will one day keep. There is no other light on the whole dark plain, and the sky answers that darkness with everything it has. The great river of stars crosses the opening in a dense band, mist made of fire, and the bright single stars burn steadily in their fixed patterns. and the ivory tusks of the doorway to heaven, as the children call the smoke hole's rim, frame it all like two curved hands. She reads the sky the way she reads the tally, for use first. The patterns turn through the night, and their turning is the only clock the dark hours have. When the great pattern she calls the antler stands over the smoke hole, the night is halfway spent. When the two bright stars she calls the eyes slide behind the rim, dawn is a fire feeding away. The hunters set their watches by her words, and the firekeeper banks her coals by them. And in the traveling seasons, the whole family walks by stars this woman taught them lying on their backs on summer grass, her arm raised, their small hands held up along her arm. She knows the wanderers too, the handful of stars that will not keep their place but stroll among the others season by season. And she keeps track of their slow business, the way you keep track of interesting neighbors. And she knows the moon in all its faces, which is her particular study, moon and tally, tally and moon, the two halves of her long arithmetic. But use is not all of it, or she would not stand so long with the cold falling on her face through the opening. Ask her what the stars are, and she would give you the answer her grandmother gave her, which is a story, and smile. Because she holds the story the way wise people hold stories, in the open hand, not the closed fist. The truth is she does not know what they are, and neither will anyone for a very long time. And standing under them not knowing is one of the good feelings, one of the oldest good feelings there is. Small, warm, briefly awake in an enormous night looking up. You know that feeling. It has not changed at all. It is the same sky, and very nearly the same stars, and exactly the same feeling. She lowers her face at last, rubs the cold out of her cheeks with both palms, and comes back to her place beside the fire, with the sky still in her eyes. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside and overhead through the smoke hole. The oldest lamps of all burn on, needing no keeper. The children are in bed, which is not at all the same thing as the children being asleep. And now comes the hour of questions, which every parent in every age knows by heart. From under the bison robe into the firelit quiet, the questions rise, one by one, in the small clear voice of the middle child, who is the family's chief interrogator. Why the fire eats wood but not stones, where the wind sleeps. Why the snow is white when water is not. Whether the mammoth knows its bones are our house, and whether it minds. Why the stars do not fall down, and when one does fall, where it lands, and whether we could go and find it. They are magnificent questions. They are the exact questions, word for word, that children will still be asking beside fires and radiators and night lights in 25,000 years, and they will still be unanswerable then, or at least unanswerable at bedtime. The grown-ups answer the way grown-ups have always answered, each in their manner. The father answers with jokes. The wind sleeps in his mother-in-law's tent, which is why it comes out so cross. A grunt of laughter from 3 beds and a hide mitten, thrown accurately from the grandmother's direction. The mother answers with the practical. The snow is white because it is full of air, little breaths of air, which is also why it keeps things warm. Now breathe your own breath under the robe and warm your nose. The old woman answers with stories, because that is what stories are for. And her answers are the ones the children will remember when they are old themselves, and tell again, changed and polished by the long handling. And to the mammoth question, which is the deepest one tonight, the old woman gives the deep answer, in the settled voice she keeps for it. The mammoth knows, she says. The mammoth was thanked. The house is not a theft. It is a gift going on being given. And that is why the family keeps the house well and keeps it warm, because you honor a gift by using it fully. The herds outside and the bones around us are one thing wearing two coats, she says, and the child considers this and finds it good, and files it where children file such things in the deep places forever. The questions grow slower, the gaps between them stretch. Why is the fire orange? Comes the last one, in a voice already half gone, and nobody answers because the asker is asleep before the question finishes landing, and the question just drifts up with the smoke, unanswered, joining all the other beautiful unanswered ones under the roof of the world. The grown-ups look at each other over the beds, in the firelight, with the tired shining look that needs no word in any language. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the children are asleep in the middle of their own wondering, which is the very best door to leave through. While the mending goes on, the evening's water is made, and making water is the right way to say it, because in this world hot water is not drawn or poured. It is built. There is no pot here that can sit in a fire. Clay pots belong to ages far downstream of this night. What the family has instead is a kettle of hide, a broad fold of rawhide slung on a frame of bent willow by the hearth, filled with clean snowmelt, and a bed of round stones that lie at the fire's edge, heating in the coals like a clutch of dark eggs. The making is a small performance, and the fire-keeper and the mother share its parts. The tongs of bent antler lift a stone from the coals, glowing faintly at its heart, breathing heat you can feel across the room. A pause over the kettle, a practiced aim, and the stone goes in with a plunge and a great friendly hiss, and a column of steam climbs toward the smoke hole like a spirit released, and the water jumps and settles. Then the next stone and the next, each hiss a note lower as the water warms, until the kettle steams gently on its own, and the spent stones are lifted out and set back at the fire's edge to reheat, trading places with their brothers all evening in a slow rotation older than memory. The hot water is the household's evening pharmacy and comfort both. Some goes to a horn cup with a pinch of dried leaves, herbs picked on the summer plain and hung in bundles from the bone rafters, and the old man drinks that against the ache in his hands, and says the same words over the first sip he has said all his life, and no one hears them any more except a visitor would. Some went earlier to the washing of the children's faces before bed, a brief loud injustice suffered nightly. Some goes to soften a strip of hide for the mending, and some to the broth for tomorrow, and the last of it stays warm in the kettle deep into the night, because someone waking cold at the bottom of the dark hours may want a swallow of warmth. And this family plans for that the way it plans for everything, quietly ahead, without being asked. Listen to the kettle work once more before we move on. Hiss and steam, and the stones knocking softly together underwater like slow hooves. It is one of the good sounds of the winter house, the sound of the fire being taught to swim, the sound of comfort being manufactured from snow and stone and patience. Children in this world fall asleep to it all winter, and if they live to be old beside some other fire, this is one of the sounds their memories will keep to the end, entire, the hiss and the steam and the mother's aim, the whole warm engineering of an ordinary night. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. And in the hide kettle by the hearth, yesterday's snow is turning over gently, warm as a held hand, ready to be useful. At the edge of the lamplight, between feedings of her fire, the keeper is making beauty, openly and on purpose, and the household approves, because beauty here is not a luxury bolted onto life. It is one of the crafts, with its own tools and its own bench. She is grinding ochre tonight. in a shallow stone with a smooth pestle worn to fit a family of hands. The ochre came from a cutbank up the river, dug in autumn, red-brown lumps of iron-rich earth, and under her pestle it goes down to a fine powder the color of embers, the color of life, the exact red her people have carried and traded and treasured across distances that would surprise you. Mixed with fat it will paint. It will color a hide robe for the midwinter feast, and mark the parting in a bride's hair someday, and redden the little ivory beads she is stringing. And it has done these things among human beings for so long already, by this night, that no one alive can imagine the time before red. Beside the ochre stone sits her beadwork, and the beadwork is patience made visible. Each bead began as a chip of mammoth ivory, sawed with flint, shaped on sandstone, drilled through its heart with a flint sliver spun between the palms, then polished against leather until it glows like a small moon. One bead is an evening's work, perhaps two. A string of them is a winter. The great parkas of the feast days, sewn over with hundreds upon hundreds of such beads in sweeping rows, are years, whole years of lamplit evenings exactly like this one, and everyone who sees such a garment reads it correctly. It says this family has skill to spare, and winters deep enough to spend on shining. It is wealth, worn where wealth belongs over the heart, catching the firelight. She works with her head bent, and the lamp pulled close, boring the little hearts out of the ivory, stringing bead after bead on a fine sinew thread, holding the growing string up now and then to the flame to watch it turn and gleam. The necklace is for her grandmother. This is a secret the entire household keeps with her, elaborately. The old woman keeps it most carefully of all. She has watched every bead of it made from 4 paces away all winter, and she will be entirely astonished at the midwinter moon. There are shells on the string too, 3 of them, spaced like the bright stars in a constellation, small seashells, gone chalky with age and distance. They came up the river years ago, hand to hand, from waters no one in this valley has ever stood beside. They are the farthest traveled things the family owns, and they will ride at an old woman's collarbone, above a heart that has never seen the sea. And that, too, is a kind of poem, the kind this age makes without riding anything down. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and at the lamp's edge, red earth and white ivory are becoming, bead by bead, the shape of one person's love for another, which is what ornament has been for from the beginning. From a peg on the bone frame above the elder's bed hangs a lumpy roll of soft hide, tied with 3 thongs, and it is the house's medicine, and the old woman is its doctor. And tonight, like most nights, it is wanted for small things only, which is the happiest fate a medicine bundle can have. She takes it down after the mending, because the middle child scraped a knuckle on the ice slide this afternoon, and the father's shoulder is speaking to him again. The old wound from before the children, that talks when the deep cold comes. The bundle unrolls on her lap into a little landscape of pouches and packets. Each is tied differently, so her fingers can find the right one with her eyes on the fire, and the smells rise out of it one over another, bitter and green and resinous. Summer's whole pharmacy dried and folded and kept against the dark. Willow bark is the cornerstone, scraped fine, for teas against pain and fever, and the wisdom in it is real, and will still be real when your own age grinds its descendants into white tablets. There is yarrow for wounds, which stops bleeding and cleans, dried flower and leaf together. There is a resin of pine, warm to a salve with fat, for cracked winter skin and for drawing splinters. There is a dark moss that packs a wound sweet and clean, and a bundle of the smoke herbs whose burning smell settles coughs, and the old woman would add, settles people, which is half of medicine anyway. Every packet was gathered at its right hour of its right month. On hillsides she could walk to in her sleep. By rules her grandmother set into her hands before her hands were grown. The doctoring itself is small and warm. The scraped knuckle was seen to at bedtime, inspected with proper seriousness, pronounced honorable, cleaned with hot water from the kettle and glossed with salve. And the patient went under the bison robe proud of himself. Now the shoulder gets the long treatment. A hot stone from the kettle's edge wrapped in hide and held against the old ache while the willow tea steeps, and the father sits leaning into the heat with his eyes shut, and the old woman works her thumbs slowly into the muscle around the old scar, in the firelight, without a word, the way she has on cold nights for 20 years. What the bundle carries most, though, is not in any pouch. Here is the settled fact of being tended. Nothing here is fought alone. Every ache in this house has a witness. Every scrape its ceremony. Every bad night a warm hand on it before morning. The medicine is real, and the willow works. But the deeper dose, the one every human nervous system was built to receive, is this. Someone keeps the remedies. Someone knows what to do. You are held and you may stop bracing now, and sleep is allowed. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the bundle is rolled and tied and hung back on its peg, having done tonight what it does most nights, which is almost nothing, gently, which is everything. The father's story of the herds is for the household, but before it tonight comes something rarer. The old man clears his throat in a particular way, and the house recognizes the sound and settles, because the old man is going to remember out loud, and this is the evening's honey. He does not tell adventures. He is 80 winters old, or near it. No one counts past a certain point, and he has outlived the need to be the hero of anything. What he tells, in his slow gravel voice with the long pauses that nobody hurries, are moments polished by 50 years of retelling. They have gone smooth and bright as the beads on his granddaughter's string, and the family knows them all and asks for them by name, the way you ask for songs. Tell the white bison, someone says, and he tells the white bison, seen once at dawn across the river in his 20th winter, pale as snow among its dark brothers, there and gone in a walking mist, never seen again by him or anyone. What it was, he does not claim to know. He only puts it before them, white in the gray light, and lets it walk from one side of the silence to the other, and every listener keeps it afterward, the way he has kept it, a coal of wonder that 60 years have not cooled. Tell the winter of the deep snow, says the half-grown boy, who loves the hard ones, and the old man tells the winter that tested his own grandfather's stores, the drifts to the smoke hole, the hunger that walked around and around the walls that year like a wolf, and how the family shared and dug and endured to the green, thinner but whole. He tells it calm, without dread, the way you can only tell a storm from deep inside the after. It is not a frightening story in his mouth. It is the opposite. It is the founding proof, entered again into the record before witnesses. This family holds. The story ends where it always ends, with his grandfather's saying, the one the children mouth along with him. However deep the snow, it is only snow. And then unasked, because tonight is a good night and the fire is kind. He tells one more, the small one, the one he keeps for last. A summer evening, 60 years gone, a girl from the far band, grinding seeds at her mother's fire, looking up. That is the whole story. The house has heard it 400 times. The old woman beside him does not look up from her sewing, but her mouth curves, 60 years young, and the whole dim dome of the house seems to lean in around the two of them like a hand, around a lamp flame. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, And the old man folds his hands, his stores handed round once more, none the smaller for the sharing, and nods off where he sits, mid-quiet, rich. With the children down and the mending winding to a close, the father tells the story of the herds, because it is deep winter, and in deep winter this story is told, the way bread is baked and boots are mended. It is a working story. It keeps something fed. He tells it low, for the grown and half-grown ears around the fire, in the unhurried voice of a man walking a path he has walked all his life. It is the story of the year, told as the animals live it, and it goes with the fire shadows like a song, goes with a drum. He tells the spring, when the ice on the great river groans and cracks like a waking giant, and the brown water runs high, and the first birds come back in ropes and wedges across the softening sky, and the reindeer drift north in their thousands after the melting edge of the snow, cows heavy with calves, following paths older than any people. He tells the summer, the brief mighty summer, when the plain goes green from rim to rim, and the sun barely troubles to set, and the herds spread wide and grow fat, and the mammoths wade in the sloughs and throw water over their backs like living hills at play, and the foals and calves find their legs, and the whole world is milk and grass and light. He tells the autumn, the gathering time, when the birds rope south again, and the herds swing back along the river, and the great crossings happen, the water churned to foam by 10,000 legs, and the people work the crossings as their grandmothers' grandmothers taught, and give thanks and fill the pits, and the first hard stars come back to the lengthening nights, and he tells the winter, which is now tonight, the herds in their sheltered hollows, heads down to the wind, the mammoths plowing the snow aside with their tusks to reach the grass that waits beneath, so that horse and reindeer follow in their wake and feed in the opened ground, the greatest of the animals breaking trail for the least, everything enduring together, each in its way, under the one cold sky, and the people in their bone house, with their fire enduring too, part of the pattern, not outside it. That is the whole story. Nothing happens in it except the year. It has no hero and no ending, because the year has neither. It rolls, and rolling is the point. The child who hears it 100 times grows into a hunter who feels the year in his body like a second heartbeat, who knows without counting when the birds are due and the crossings near, whose feet simply know where the herds will be, because the story walked those paths into him early, by firelight, in his father's voice. The story finds its resting place, the same one as always, the herd standing quiet in the winter dark, and the teller lets it stand there and reaches for the water skin, and the fire has the silence for a while. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the year turns slowly overhead like a great wheel, and everyone under it tonight knows their place on the rim. Someone begins to sing. It is not a performance. Nobody announces it, and nobody stops their slow last tasks to listen. The mother starts it, hardly louder than the fire, an old rocking song with more hum than words in it, and it simply joins the room, the way the lamplight joined it. The songs of this house are winter polished, like everything else here, small tunes, worn smooth by generations of throats, going around and coming around, made for low voices and long nights. After a verse the father's voice slides in underneath, an octave down, not so much singing as agreeing. The old woman keeps the time with her thumb against her wrist, an old habit from drumming days, and mouths the words where she likes them and rests where she does not. Then the young man takes out the flute, because this song has a flute part, and everyone knows it, and it is his to play now. The flute is bird bone, the long wing bone of a swan, hollow by nature as if made for this on purpose, drilled with 5 neat holes by some maker 2 generations gone. It is older than the player. It has outlived 3 owners and will outlive him, passing down the family like the needle case and the tally. One of the small immortal things. Its voice is thin and high and slightly breathy, a sound like winter light. He plays it softly, under the voices, filling the gaps in the tune the way frost fills the gaps in grass. And the plain fact, attested by the sleeping children who do not stir and the old man whose eyes have closed in open contentment, is that this small ensemble of tired family voices and one swan's wing is as beautiful as music will ever really need to be. Grander things will come, halls and choirs and instruments of brass and gold, but music was already finished, already whole on nights like this, before any of that. Voices low around a fire, a bone flute over them, snow to the horizon in every direction, and the singers singing, not to be heard but to be together. That is the seed. Everything after is elaboration. The song goes around a last time and settles, the way their songs do, not ending but landing, coming down to the hum it rose from, and then to breathe, and then to the fire's own crackle, which was the rhythm section all along. The flute is wiped and wrapped and put away in its case of hide. The mother tucks the robe closer around the children her singing has pinned deeper into sleep. Somebody murmurs the burden of the song once more, speaking now, the way you set down the last line of a prayer at the door of sleep. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the last of the song is still up in the dome somewhere with the smoke, taking its time about leaving. Talk drifts as fireside talk does, and it drifts tonight to the painted cave, because the young man with the flute has never seen it and has asked, and when he asks the elders always go quiet in a particular way before they answer. It is a quiet with a place inside it. The cave is far, many days' travel, south along the river and up into the broken hills, a journey made once in a young lifetime, and not every lifetime. The old man made it long ago, when his beard was dark. The old woman made it as a girl. What they carry back from it, and unwrap on nights like this, is not a trophy but a memory, and they handle it like the tally, carefully in turns. They speak of the going in, the mouth of the cave modest, a shadow under a brow of stone, and the passage narrow, and the lamps small against a darkness that is not night's darkness at all but something older and total, the original dark, the dark the world keeps in its pockets. The sounds changing, the outside falling away behind them, like a country they had emigrated from. And then the paintings. The old man's voice drops when he reaches them. Even now, even here, 50 winters on. Horses, he says. Horses running on the stone, drawn by hands that knew horses to the bone, manes flying, nostrils round with breath, bison with their heavy heads low, mammoth walking in lines, just as they walk on the ridge tonight. A great deer, lions, drawn overlapping, life over life, by many hands across many lifetimes, so that the walls hold not a picture but a herd of pictures, moving in the lamplight. Because they do move, he says. That is the thing he needs the young man to understand, and cannot quite give him. The painters use the swell of the rock for a shoulder, the crack for a spine, and when the small flame passes, the shoulder rolls and the legs gather, and for less than a breath the stone animals run. The old woman remembers the hands, on one wall low down, hands outlined in blown red, dozens of them, big ones, small ones. A child's hand smaller than her own hand was then. She laid her palm in the cold print of a palm that was old before hers was born, and felt, she says, exactly what you would feel, what anyone would feel, what the one who blew the paint must have wanted felt. Here, we were warm once like you. Go well. The young man listens with the fire shining in his eyes, and the journey is planting itself in him. The way it planted in the old man at the same age, by the same kind of fire. In some spring to come, he will walk south with the traders. He will stand in the breathing dark, and add nothing to the walls, because the walls do not need him. Or add one small horse in charcoal in an empty corner, because perhaps they do. Either way, he will lay his hand where the hands are. Everyone always does. It is what the wall is for. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. And far to the south, in the absolute dark under the hills, the horses are running on the stone right now, unwatched, which the old man says does not matter. The dark keeps them running, he says. Seeing is only visiting. Step outside with me, just once, just briefly. Before the deep night seals the house, the firekeeper is fetching snow to melt for the night's water, and we can slip out through the tunnel in her lanternless wake and stand a moment in the world, because the world tonight deserves one more look. The cold takes the breath first, then gives it back slow and white. It is a still cold, enormous and mineral. And after the amber crowd of the house, it feels less like weather than like architecture. A single black and silver hall going up forever. The stars have doubled since dusk. The snow gives its ghost light. The house at our backs glows faintly at the smoke hole. A single coal in all that blue dark, and its thread of smoke stands straight as a lodge pole into the stars. And the plane is not asleep so much as slowed. Listen. Far off, a long way north, comes a sound like soft thunder that never quite starts. A deep rolling mutter below the edge of hearing. The mammoths talking. They speak to each other across miles in voices lower than ears. Voices you feel in your chest rather than hear. And on still nights, their conversation crosses the plain like weather. What they say, no one will ever know. The old woman says they are counting each other. It is as good a guess as science will ever make. Closer in the willow flats, the horse herd shifts in its sleep. A stamp, a blown breath, the soft grinding of a jaw. They sleep in shifts, some standing dozing, a few lying flat in the snow like dark islands, one always awake at the herd's edge, and their warmth rises off them in a faint shimmer against the stars. A white fox crosses the open ground in front of us, at a trot, on business, and does not so much as glance our way. An owl unspools from somewhere and floats over the caches, finds nothing rustling, and dissolves back into the dark it came from. This is what the night is, out here beyond the walls. Not empty, occupied. Millions of great warm animals bedded down across 1,000 miles of snow, enduring the same cold under the same stars, hearts thudding slow in bodies built like furnaces, each herd wrapped in its own watches and its own warmth. The people are one more herd among them, in a bone house instead of a hollow, with a fire instead of a shaggy coat, keeping the night the same way everything out here keeps it. Together, warm-centered, patient, certain of morning. The firekeeper has her basket of snow. She jerks her chin at the doorway once, meaning enough sky in, and she is right, the cold has found our boots. One last breath of the huge dark. One last look at the smoke climbing to the stars. Then in through the crooked tunnel, back into the amber, where the fire greets us like a hound. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. And now we can say it truly, having stood out there in the cold's own country and come home. Below the house, a short walk down the slope that no one will take again till morning. The river lies under its winter lid, and though nobody is there to see it, the river is worth a chapter to itself. Because the river is why everything else is here. It is frozen a full arm's length deep, white and gray and locked. A broad road of stillness winding through the plain. In the daylight, the family crosses it like a path, and the children slide on the clear black patches where the wind has swept it, and the water hole is kept open with an antler pick at the near bank, a low dome of built-up ice around it like the mouth of a well. But the river is not dead under its lid. Stand on the bank on a still night, and you can hear it living. The water still runs under the ice, deep and slow, and the ice speaks over it, long booms that roll away downstream, like something enormous turning over in bed. Sudden bright cracks, sharp as the knapper's flint, that go skittering from bank to bank. And beneath those, if you are patient, the sound the children love best, the singing. A thin, wandering, wail-like note that rises when the ice settles its weight, eerie and lovely, the voice of winter itself practicing scales. The river made this place. In summer it is the road the fish come up and the willows drink from, the reason the herds funnel through this valley, the water of every kettle and the highway of every trade. The far bands live up it and down it, a day apart, 2 days, 5, like beads on one string. News and flint and needles and marriage travel the string in both directions. Summer by boat hide, and winter by the ice road itself walking. When the visitors come at the midwinter moon, they will come up the frozen river, dark specks on the white ribbon, seen half a morning away, and the children will run out to meet them shining with joy, in the way of children meeting cousins across every age of the world. Tonight the river simply holds the valley in its white arm and booms softly to itself under the stars. The water hole has skinned over with new ice, thin as a fingernail, and will be opened with one tap at dawn. A line of fox tracks crosses the snow on the lid, neat as stitching, shore to shore. Under it all, under the lid and the dark and the cold, the water goes on quietly toward the distant sea, the way it went before anyone was here to name it, the way it will go after, patient beyond all patience, the oldest inhabitant of the valley and the kindest. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the river sings under its ice like a kept promise, all night to no one, for everyone. Back inside, at the fire's steady side, the last business of the evening is being settled, and it is being settled the way this family settles everything, in murmurs, over the coals, with long, comfortable silences doing most of the talking. It is the quiet council, the little meeting of tomorrow. The father, the knapper, and the half-grown boy sit with their forearms on their knees, faces to the embers, and between them, in an unhurried scatter of half-sentences, the next day assembles itself. The snare line up the willow flats wants walking. It has had 2 nights. The fuel stack could take another sledge of bone from the old kill site down the river, while the weather holds. The water hole will want its dawn tap. If the morning is clear and still, the boy might go up the rise with the old man's spear, not to hunt, only to walk the near ridge and read the snow, and come back and say what the night wrote there. This last is said casually into the fire, but nothing about it is casual, and the boy's careful nod is a young man's nod, and both older men note it without appearing to. There is no chief in this house, and no vote either. Decisions here pool, like water finding its level. Someone says a thing, and it sits in the warm air being looked at, and someone adds a grain to it, and by the third silence, the thing has either settled into tomorrow's plan or quietly dissolved, and everyone knows which, without a word of summing up. The mother, sorting her sewing 3 paces away, is entirely part of this council, without once turning her head. Her one sentence, offered midway about the state of the boot-hide stores, redirects the whole fuel question, and the men absorb the correction the way sensible sailors absorb weather. Tomorrow, arranged this way, holds no dread. That is worth noticing, here at the lip of the world's hardest season. Tomorrow is short and cold, and it will be met in fur boots with a plan made warm the night before. Nothing in it is unknown. Every task named tonight has been done 100 times by these hands or the hands that taught them, and the day will hold 2 meals and a fire at both ends of itself. Planning in this house is not worry organized. It is comfort distributed, a way of laying tomorrow down by the fire tonight so that it, too, sleeps tame. The council ends the way it began, without ceremony, when the pauses grow longer than the sentences, and the boy's head has begun its slow, honest argument with gravity. The father banks the last of his thoughts with the same motion he uses on the fire, a settling gesture done. "Sleep on it," he says, which is what he always says, and here the saying is not a figure of speech. It is the actual method. The plans go into the sleepers, and the sleepers go into the furs, and by morning the day will be risen and proved like good dough. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and tomorrow has been talked small and warm and put to bed early, where good tomorrows belong. Before the last of the household lies down, the mother makes the night round, and the night round deserves watching, because it is the whole art of this life performed in 5 quiet minutes. She goes sunwise around the wall, by lamp light and ember light, checking the house into its sleep. The door tunnel first, its inner hide pegged snug, its draft no more than a cold thread on the back of the hand, correct. The fuel stack at the keeper's place, built and ordered, the great night bone waiting on top like a keystone, correct. The kettle warm and covered, the bowls wiped and stacked, the work bags tied and hung, needles counted into their bone case, because a needle loose in a floor hide is a misery owed to someone's knee at midnight. The drying rack above the fire, hung with the day's damp boot liners and mittens, each pair turned once so morning finds them dry through. The cash's capstone she checked at dusk, but she asks the firekeeper anyway with a look, and gets the nod, sealed and snowed, correct. She touches things as she goes. That is the noticing thing, the signature of the round, not moving them, just touching. A flat palm on the grinding stone, 2 fingers on the flute's hide case, a knuckle against the great tusk of the door frame, the way a boat's owner walks her hull, the way a shepherd counts without counting. Each touch is a small question, and each thing answers the same way. Here, sound, ready. The house replies to her hand 100 times a day, but the night replies are the ones that matter, because they are the ones she will sleep on. Understand what this round is, under its smallness. There is no lock to turn here, no latch, no bar. What stands between this family and the enormous night is not a mechanism. It is order itself. The fuel where fuel goes, the water where water goes, dry things drying, sharp things sheathed, food sealed under stone and snow, fire banked under ash, every made thing in its remembered place so that any hand can find it in the black of midnight at need. Order is the door. Order is the wall behind the wall. Her mother made this round before her, in another house on another rise, and hers before that, back and back along the river of grandmothers, each one closing her own night with the same slow sunwise walk, the same touching palm, the same silent tally ending in the same silent word. Enough. At the end of the round she stands a moment at the middle, by the banked fire, and looks once around the whole warm ring of her world, sleepers and stores and steady lamp, and finds it as her hand found it, sound. Then she lies down in her place, last of the household, first to rise, and lets the house hold her the way she has all evening been holding the house. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and everything within the walls is where it should be, known, touched, counted, and kept. Deep in the evening the moon comes up, and though the house is nearly all abed, the moon will not go unwitnessed, because the firekeeper watches it rise through the smoke hole. That is one of the private privileges of her office. It comes up round and slightly worn, a night or two past its fullest, the color of old ivory, the color of the tally. It climbs out of the plain's eastern rim and pulls free of the horizon haze. And as it rises, the world outside remakes itself, and the smoke hole shows her the remaking in one round frame. Moonlight on deep snow is the brightest night there is. The plain turns silver blue, shadowless at first, then striped with long soft shadows as the moon gains height, every ridge of wind-combed snow drawing its own thin line of blue dark. The mammoth trails show as braided seams of shadow. The river becomes a road of gray light. It is bright enough to walk by, bright enough to hunt by at need, bright enough, the old people say, to sew by if your thread is pale and your need is real. Nothing else in the night sky will ever be so useful to human beings, and no one will ever pay it wages. The moon works free and always has. Inside, the moonlight comes down through the smoke hole in a slanting column, mixing strangely and beautifully with the fire's amber, a spill of cold silver on the warm floor that travels, hour by hour, across the hides like the hand of a very slow clock. The firekeeper knows its road by heart. When the silver touches the edge of the grinding stone, the night is at its middle. When it climbs the far wall, dawn is near enough to think about. She has 2 clocks, this girl, one of coals and one of moon, and she runs the night between them. The children who fought sleep and lost hours ago will never know the moon crossed their bed tonight, touched the bison robe, silvered their tangled hair and moved on. But the old woman knows. She surfaces briefly, as the old do, sees the silver column standing in the middle of her house like a guest, and takes it as it has been taken by every generation before her, as company. The night is long, and the moon also cannot sleep, and there is a fellowship in that, thin and cool and real. She turns over, drawing the fur to her chin, and goes back down into sleep, and the moonlight stands quietly in the room among the breathing, the politest visitor the house will ever have. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the moon crosses the smoke hole slow and silver, keeping its own watch over everyone who has stopped keeping theirs. And then softly, past the middle of the night, the sky begins to move. The firekeeper sees it first, as she would, a green pallor washing into the round of the smoke hole, faint at the start, like the memory of a color rather than the color itself. She watches it strengthen. Then she does the thing that her office permits on perhaps 2 nights a winter. She wakes the house, softly, a hand to a shoulder here, a whisper there, the coals safe behind her. The sky river, she says. It walks. It is the one gentle waking of this night, and everyone will sleep the deeper for it after. And the family rises, all of it, elders and children and all, pulling furs around shoulders, filing out through the tunnel into the enormous cold, because this is worth the cold, and everyone stands together in the blue snow and looks up. The aurora is out. It hangs in the north in long curtains, green as deep river water, taller than anything has a right to be, reaching from the plain's edge to the top of the sky. It moves the way nothing else moves, not like cloud, not like smoke, not like water, but rippling all along its length at once, folding and unfolding, as if the night were a hide and someone on the far side of it were slowly shaking out the creases. At its lower hem the green sharpens, higher up it thins into pale rose, and a color with no name that the eye keeps almost catching, and it is utterly silent, which is the eeriest grace of it. All that majesty overhead without one whisper of sound, only the family's own breath and the creak of snow under shifting boots. The little ones press against legs and stare with their mouths open, moon-faced in the green light. The old man watches with his head far back and his eyes bright, counting this one in with all the others of his long life. Each remembered, each singular. The old woman will cut the doubled mark on the tally tomorrow, the sky-danced night, joining the little constellation of such marks scattered down the ivory years. The child asks what it is, of course, because the chief interrogator never fully sleeps, and the answers are given softly up at the sky, all the answers at once, in the tumbled, comfortable way of a family talking in the dark. It is the herds of the sky running. It is the fire of the north wind's house, with the door left open. It is the ancestors dancing, says the old woman, which is the answer the child pockets and keeps. No one is corrected. The sky is large enough for every answer. And the truth of it, the sun's own breath caught in the sky's net, is 25,000 years down the river of nights, and will not be more beautiful than this when it arrives. It will only be smaller. The curtains fold and flare once more and slowly pale. The cold has collected its toll. The family files back in, snow squeaking, murmuring, the children walking backward to keep it in sight to the last, and the tunnel swallows them one by one into the amber warmth. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the sky closes its green curtains over the plain, and the night resumes its ordinary silver, seeming almost plain now, like a room after the guest of honor has gone. Toward the deepest hours, a wind comes up, and the house and the wind have their old conversation, the one the family sleeps through and trusts. It begins far off, as steppe wind does, audible minutes before it is feelable, a low hush growing out of the north like a tide across 1,000 miles of snow. Then it arrives and walks around the house. That is truly what it sounds like from inside. Not an attack, a circuit. The wind leans on the west wall, and the wall says nothing. It combs across the dome, and the taut hides give one soft drumskin thrum and settle. It noses at the smoke hole, and the fire sways once, licks sideways, and stands straight again as the keeper narrows the opening a hand's width with the pull thong, without fully waking, the way a sleeper pulls up a blanket. The house is built for exactly this, and feeling a built thing do its work in the night is one of the quiet luxuries of shelter. The dome sheds the wind the way a round stone sheds the river. There are no corners for the gusts to grip, no flat faces to strike. The bone frame, heavy beyond any wind's ambition, hums very faintly at its joints, a deep inaudible note more felt than heard, the sound of strength being sufficient, and the snow banked on the walls, the winter's own gift, seals every seam the builders left. The wind grows for a while. Outside, it is moving the whole surface of the world, smoking the snow off the ridge crests in silver banners, erasing the day's tracks, redrawing the dunes of the plain on its own designs. The mammoths on the far slopes have swung their backs to it and closed their eyes, sails reefed. The horses in the flats are a single clump now, heads inward, a warm stone in the stream of the night. Every living thing on the steppe is doing the same discovered thing, presenting its roundness to the wind and waiting, and the house among them, roundest of all. Inside, the sleeping family hears it the way you hear rain from bed, which is to say their bodies hear it and answer with comfort. It is one of the oldest trades there is, the wind's voice against the wall, translated by walls into the very sound of safety. A child stirs, roots deeper into the fur heap stills. The old man, without surfacing, mutters something to the weather, an old man's word, and is gone again. The firekeeper lies listening longer than the rest, feeling the house work, proud of it the way you are proud of a good boat under sail. And then she too lets the wind carry her down. By the coldest hour the wind has said what it came to say and walks on south across the plain, smaller and smaller, taking its hush away with it, leaving the night swept, tightened and cleaner starred than before. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. It knocked tonight, politely enough, and the house answered for everyone, and no one else needed to wake. Here is a thing the family knows without looking, and it warms the house as surely as the hearth does. They are not alone on the plain tonight. Up the river, a long day's walk north, where the three hills stand together, another bone house sits in the snow with its own smoke standing in the same stars. The far band, cousins most of them, one way or another, and joined again last spring by a marriage. Down the river, 2 days south at the Lake Narrows, a larger camp, 3 houses, the people the traders come through. Beyond them, farther bands known by name and story if not by face, beads on the river's string, each with its fire. The string runs all the way down to the hills of the Painted Cave, and by rumor and relay, it runs on to bands beyond those, of whom even the old woman knows only that they are there. On a clear, still night like this, a sharp-eyed person on the rise behind the house can sometimes catch it. The northern camp's light, a single warm point low on the plain, small as a lamp wick at a mile, steady among the cold stars on the horizon. The half-grown boy climbs up to look on nights when sleep is slow. He says it is to check the weather. He found the point of light 2 winters ago, and has kept it secret the way you keep a coin, taking it out, turning it over. Someone is there. 15 people he mostly knows are around that spark right now, eating from bowls like his family's bowls, mending by a lamp like theirs, going down into sleep under robes like his. The tall daughter is there. The plain between here and there is dark and enormous and 14 hours deep in night. And across all of it, spark answers spark. This is the other web the family lives in, wide as the Star River overhead. Flint from the South Hills is in the Knapper's hands tonight. Shells from a sea no one here has seen hang at the old woman's throat, traded up the river years ago. Salt water made into neighborly patience. The songs travel the string, and the stories and the needles and the names. When the midwinter moon fills, 10 nights from tonight by the tally, the far band will come down the ice road, and this house will feast them from the good caches, and there will be singing that raises the smoke hole, and the boy and the tall daughter will be very careful not to look at each other, in the way that fools absolutely no one over 40. Humans were never solitary, not even here. Not even at the cold bottom of the Ice Age with a dozen souls to 100 miles. The whole species tonight is spread thin beyond imagining. Sparks scattered wide across the dark continents, and every spark knows where its neighbor sparks are, and walks to them at midwinter, and marries between them and mourns between them. And so the thin fire of the kind is passed along, hand to hand, band to band, down the whole length of the dark to you. The fire is fed and the cold stays outside. And to the north, at the very edge of seeing, a spark answers all night, meaning the same thing. And now the house is fully asleep, and we can walk its round once, the way the porter walked the library and the watchman kept his tower, because someone should see this, and tonight the someone is us. Every soul is down. Count the sleepers by the wall lamp's steady pedal, the children's heap under the bison robe, risen and fallen into one soft dune, a foot in someone's back, an arm flung over a neighbor's head. They are deep in the shared warmth. They will remember all their lives. Without knowing they remember it. The elders lie side by side on their soft-worked furs, the old man flat and formal as a carving, The old woman curled small like a listening comma. The parents, the hunters, the young man of the flute, each shape in its place in the dark ring, breathing in the slow, overlapping rhythms of a household long practiced at sleeping together in one round room. The house breathes with them. That is not a figure of speech. Stand still at the middle, by the banked fire, and you can hear the whole organism at its night work. 11 sleepers' breath, braided, the fire's coal bed ticking softly under its ash blanket, exhaling its thin thread of smoke, which rises through the moon column to the smoke hole and out to the stars. The lamp's small flames, sipping their fat, the bone frame settling by hair's breadths under the snow's slow weight. One discreet creak an hour, an old house's word to itself. In and out, give and take, warmth rising, cold held, breath answering breath. The smells of night are different from the smells of evening, rounder and quieter. Banked fire, warm fur, the green ghost of the willow smoke, the cold, clean iron of the night air sifting down from the smoke hole and losing its courage halfway, warmed into harmlessness before it reaches a single sleeper. Nothing here is anxious. That is the deep thing to notice, the thing worth carrying away. By every measure your age will invent, these are the hardest lives imaginable, at the bottom edge of the possible, on an ice plain in skin houses, one fire wide. And here they are, deeply, softly, expertly asleep, every one of them. Because tonight the work was done, and the walls are good, and the fire is kept, and everyone is inside. Worry, real worry, waits on real causes here, and it has none tonight. And so the house is simply at peace. The full kind, the kind whole cities of the future will lie awake at midnight envying without knowing what it is they envy. Here is this, a round room, everyone you love breathing inside one wall. Enough, the fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the house rises and falls on its own slow breath like a moored boat, all night, going nowhere, exactly as intended. The fire, meanwhile, is keeping its own version of the night, and since everyone else is asleep, its version is the true one and deserves telling. Banked under ash, the coal bed lives its secret life. From above, gray and quiet, a dusty hill apparently done. But the gray is a coat, not a condition. Underneath, the coals are at their slow feast, working through the great night bone the keeper laid at banking time. And if a draught thins the ash at one edge, a seam of deep orange opens like an eye, considers the room and closes again. Heat comes off the bed in a steady standing bloom, no longer the flamboyant heat of flames but something better for the hour, patient, even load-bearing, the heat equivalent of a low-held note. The fire ticks as it works, small collapses inside the coal bed, a knuckle of bone letting go, ash sifting into ash, each with its tiny tick or tumble hush. The clock of the embers, telling no hour but telling the night constantly, I am here, I am here, I am here. The firekeeper's sleeping ear is tuned to exactly this station. Ticks and hushes in their right rhythm pass her by like her own heartbeat. One wrong sound, the sharper pop of a coal spitting past the stones, the hiss of a drip from the smoke hole finding the bed, and she is awake before she knows she is awake, up on an elbow, reading the ash. It happens once tonight, near the coldest hour, a single overloud pop. She surfaces, looks, sees the ember safely on stone, flicks it home with the poker, checks the smoke hole draw with a glance, and is asleep again in under a minute. Total service time, 40 seconds. It will not appear in any record. It is the whole difference between a house that lasts the winter and a story with a sad ending. 40 seconds at a time, night upon night, generation upon generation. Because this fire is old, Not this evening's flames, but the fire, the household fire, carried as coals in a horn from the last camp, and to that camp from the one before, back along the family's whole traveling history, fed and banked and carried and fed again. An unbroken thread of combustion going back farther than the tally, farther than the stories, farther than anyone can say. Some ancestor struck or borrowed or carried the first of it, and every fire since has been that fire's child. The family is not fanciful about this. They are simply careful, the way you are careful with anything irreplaceable. But the fire keeper, who is 15 and allowed some poetry, privately believes the ember bed remembers all its former hearths, and dreams of them there under the ash, through the long watch. Perhaps it does. It has the look tonight of something dreaming. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and down in the orange dark under the gray, the oldest member of the family keeps the only watch still standing, and finds all well. There is an hour in every winter night that has no neighbors. The evening is long gone, and the morning is not yet imaginable, and the night stands still at its own center. And this is that hour, arriving now over the plain like a held breath. Outside, the cold reaches its deepest mark. The stars burn their hardest, needle-bright, unblinking, and the snow answers them with its faint blue shine. And between sky and snow, nothing moves at all. The wind is long gone south. The mammoths on the ridge are still. The horses are one dark stone in the willow flats. Even the river's ice has settled into silence. Its booming done, its singing done, everything said. The plain lies like a held note, like the pause between two heartbeats stretched out to the horizon. And the only motion in the whole visible world is the house's thread of smoke, climbing thin and patient into the stars. Inside, the house is at its warmest depth, not the busy warmth of evening, with its flames and lamps and voices, but the settled midnight warmth of banked coals and 11 sleepers, thick and even and everywhere. The kind of warmth that has stopped being an event and become a place. The night lamp in its niche burns on, one thumbnail of amber in the dark, showing the dome its own shape. The moon column has climbed the far wall, pale silver, halfway to its dawn mark. The breathing of the family has slowed and deepened, and braided itself into a single settled rhythm. The sound a house makes when every one of its people is in the deep country of sleep at once. If you could stand here now, in the middle of the round floor in the ember light, you would understand something that daylight never quite lets you see. This hour is not empty. It is full. It is the fullest hour of all, the one everything else was for. The hunts of autumn were for this. The sowing, the caching, the fire drill practice, the bone hauling, the 10,000 small labors of the bright half of the year, all of it was aimed here, at 11 people sleeping warm through the coldest hour of the coldest season of the coldest age, safe as stones in a pocket. This hour is the harvest. The sleeping is the wealth. The stillness you would stand in is not the absence of the day's living. It is the point of it. And the small night sounds go on carrying the hour along, each one on its watch. The tick of the embers, the whisper of the lamp, the slow creak of the bone frame shouldering its snow, a child murmuring 3 syllables of dream talk and sinking again, the old man's long breaths, even as waves, every sound small, every sound in order, the whole dark inventory of a house at peace, counted and correct. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside, and the deepest hour passes over the house like a great slow wing, and does no harm at all, and moves on westward across the plain toward all the other sleeping valleys. And in the deep hours the sleepers dream, and we may as well wonder what they dream, since wondering is a kind of lullaby too, and no one can correct us. The children dream close to the surface, the way children do. A leg twitches under the bison robe, small fingers close on nothing, or on everything. The middle child, the chief interrogator, is asking questions in some bright dream country where perhaps they answer, where the wind shows you where it sleeps and the fallen star can be walked to and picked up, still warm. The smallest dreams of the feast to come, most likely. Cousins and songs and berry paste without limit. Since the smallest heard the midwinter moon discussed at bedtime and took it to sleep like a toy. The hunters dream the plain. Their legs know it so well that sleep walks them out along it, over the crusted snow, down the game trails, and the herds move through their sleeping heads the way they move through the year, slow rivers of warm backs. And it is summer in the dream, or autumn at the crossings, or some season that never was, all seasons at once, grass and snow together. The way dreams keep their weather. The father, who told the story of the herds, dreams somewhere inside the story he told. Tellers always do. That is where the stories are kept between tellings. The mother dreams of hands most nights. Work rides into sleep on the hands. Everyone here knows that. Sewing that finishes itself. Seems running smooth as water. A boot heel closing perfectly under her fingers forever. Restful dreams of competence. The worker's reward. The firekeeper dreams of the fire, of course, but gently. In her dream the coals are deep and orange and need nothing, and she checks them, and they need nothing, and she checks them, and the checking is the sleeping all night, her duty and her rest lying in the same bed like old friends, and the old woman, curled small under her extra soft furs, dreams long and far, because she has the most country to travel. The old dream in decades. Her mother's voice is in there, and snow of 70 winters ago, and the painted cave with her girl's hand rising to the wall, and babies grown gray now still riding her hip, and the sky river dancing over some Camp 3 moves back along the family's road, everything folded together without seam or sorrow. The whole held life turning slowly in the dark of her like the stars in the smoke hole. If she could report it in the morning she would only say, "I slept well." It is what the old always say of those enormous voyages. I slept well. Perhaps the house itself dreams. The fire-keeper believes the embers do, and she is the authority present. Say it dreams then. An old bone house on a snowy rise, dreaming with its family inside it, of mammoths on green summer ground, of the river running open, of every winter it has stood through standing through this one too. Say the whole warm sleeping world dreams, herds and house and river under ice, one long communal winter dream, patient and kind, with morning at the end of it. The fire is fed and the cold stays outside, and inside, behind 11 pairs of closed eyes, 11 private worlds turn quietly, safe in the one shared dark. And at last, at the far end of the great vault of the night, the hour before dawn comes to the Ice Age plain, the way it comes to every world we have visited together, quietly from the east, without any hurry at all. It comes first, as a change you could not name. The eastern rim of the plain, black all night below the stars, turns some color that is not yet a color, a loosening of the dark no more. The stars there grow modest. The great river of stars, which stood all night over the smoke hole, has wheeled westward, and lies down now along the far horizon. The moon is long set. The cold makes its last deepening, the traditional final word it always insists on, and then eases imperceptibly, like a grip beginning to forget itself. The plane takes the news slowly. Out in the willow flats, a horse shakes its whole hide in a rattle of frost and stands differently, facing east, the way animals stand when something is coming that they approve of. On the ridge, the mammoths begin to drift. A step, a pause, a step, turning the day's first slow circle toward the feeding grounds. A raven crosses high overhead in the graying dark. First sentence of the morning, remarking on everything. And far off another raven answers it, and the two remarks sail away north over the silent snow. At the house, the smoke hole pales. The round of sky in it goes from star-thick black to a deep late blue, and the ivory tusks of the doorway to heaven stand against that blue like the horns of the morning itself. The night lamp in its niche, faithful all night, finds its little light growing less necessary, which is the only retirement a lamp here ever asks for. And the fire-keeper wakes. No one wakes her. The night's rhythm itself, wound through her sleep like thread, delivers her to the surface exactly now, as it has all winter. She lies still one moment, reading the house with her ears, finding all well. Then she rises on an elbow, opens the gray blanket of ash with her poker, and finds the night bone's legacy waiting. A bed of live orange coals, deep and ready. The fire's whole answer to the 14-hour dark. She feeds it its breakfast twig by twig, and the first small flames of morning climb obediently up through the amber gloom, and the light in the dome strengthens and warms, and the house begins, very gently, to be tomorrow. The others still sleep, and she lets them. This half-hour belongs to her and the fire and the paling smoke hole, the keeper's private share of every day, and she spends it as always, hands to the young flames, face gilded, watching the blue round of sky go slowly silver above the tusks. Outside, the east is truly kindling now. The snow is finding its first faint rose. The long night, the whole magnificent 14-hour vault of it, the lamps and the songs and the stories, the moon and the sky river, the wind that walked and the embers that watched, is folding itself away westward complete. And it has done what nights are for. It has rested its people. It has carried them, every one, warm and dreaming from one day's edge to the other, and set them down safe in sight of morning. Soon the house will stir. The old man will wake first among the sleepers, and lie listening with satisfaction to the fire being alive. The children's heap will produce one tousled head, then another. The bowls will come out, and the water hole will get its dawn tap, and the day, with its small good work, will begin. But not yet. For a little while longer there is only this: the fire fed and rising, the keeper at her watch, the family breathing slow in the last soft dark, the east coming up gold beneath the morning star. The fire is fed, and the cold stays outside. It was true at dusk, and it was true at midnight, and it is true now at the edge of morning, and it will be true tomorrow night, and all the winter's nights, in the round house on the rise above the frozen river, 25,000 years upstream of your own warm bed. Let it be true for you as well. Whatever the night holds where you are, may your fire be fed, and may the cold stay outside, and may you rest as they rest deeply together, certain of morning. Asleep now, This was worlds before morning. Good night.